temple, the reconstruction of the temple, following the incredible disappointment of the one that was built coming back from exile out of Babylon. That's recorded in Nehemiah and Ezra. The temple was under construction at the time of Jesus. It was a 40-year construction project. Now, those have been around the construction projects here in Seattle, particularly our own church, for example, probably it's easier to believe that. But this was a 40-year construction project, and it was not yet done. But it was it was one of the 7 wonders of the world. Gold-laden, just incredible place that was the glory of Israel, and was the political power of an Idumean king who Rome allowed to be over the Jewish people in their place. And though he was brutal and was certainly not loved by his people, they appreciated a number of things he'd protected, the temple being one of them. It is politically and socially and culturally a scandal that the story of the woman who came to the temple with only her 2, whatever they were, 2 pennies, shall we say, with nearly nothing, that Jesus said that she shall be heard of wherever my gospel is spoken of. And she comes in and she gives her best, and it's nothing. You can imagine the snarl that had happened by the priest who was exchanging, let's say, her 4 pieces of Roman coin, which had to be changed in order for it to be sacred, to temple monies, and that at a significant interest rate. And so now she walks away, instead of 4, she has only 2. She would go into the place where women could be, which in Israel, the incredible thing is, women actually could go into the heart of the faith. It was a radical change from any other faith tradition at the time. Also, lepers, they had a corner of the faith for themselves. But she would go in and she would throw these two pennies, if you will, into these what were called trumpets, and they were just like this cup. They were the top, they were wide, and then they went narrowed down, and then they opened to a vast area below, so that the money that the Levites and the priests and the rich and wealthy would give, the privilege that the culture would give, would make a tremendous sound as it would clang down through what was called the trumpet. In my story about Mary and her visit to the temple, I create the same scene, because it is the heart of Mary and the heart of the gospel that those who have least are the closest to God.
Mary had been careful to drop her few coins into the trumpets inside the holy place, so as to minimize the noise of her coins clinging against the sides of the golden vessels as they fell to the repository at bottom. "Of what are you afraid, little girl?" Mary thought to herself. "It is not as though what little you could give would cause such a racket, especially with the noise of the crowd, the prayers and animals being sacrificed." Mary smiled at her worried pride. Just then, a hand reached out and touched her shoulder. She turned into the smiling and welcome face of her uncle Zachariah. Before words could be exchanged, Zachariah had given his little niece a bear hug that melted away all the lonely fears that had been building since her descent from Nazareth towards Jerusalem. Like a dam bursting, Mary broke out into a deep and repetitive sob that took Zachariah by surprise. After some moments of solace, Zachariah pushed Mary back, holding her at the shoulders, studying her eyes, leading her out into the holy place, into a quiet corner of the temple grounds under the surrounding colonnades. Zachariah directed Mary to be seated on the steps and took his place beside her. Mary had interpreted Zachariah's silence as a respectful and loving awe, having sensed a deep wound and waiting for the beloved to speak first. She poured out her soul to this priest. Mary kept looking for the shocked and defensive distancing, but found only an accepting and mysterious calm. Finally, she was done. She felt consoled in her heavenly Father's home, and by one of his own. She looked up and into her uncle's face, awaiting his words of wisdom and comfort. To her surprise, Zechariah did not speak, but instead took out a tablet he had been carrying and began to write. He wrote for some time. Mary watched, a little confused at such a response, but honoring him as he had her. Then Zechariah handed Mary the tablet, and as she read, Mary began to realize that her journey was part of a much larger narrative being written by the God of Abraham, Isaac, David, and perhaps even her Joseph. Hope filled Mary, and with hope a great and childish smile as she had not known for some time.